Well, one MP who made an impassioned speech in the Commons earlier about the dangers of a lockdown was Conservative Sir Charles Walker. He said people's mental health had already been harmed by earlier lockdowns, and another one would be very hard to endure, especially during dark and cold winter months. Sir Charles joins us now from Parliament. Sir Charles, I'll come back to the mental health aspects of all of this in a minute, but if you just look at those figures, 1,041 more COVID deaths, 30,000 people in hospital, yet you voted against measures which would undoubtedly save lives. It's quite hard to justify, isn't it?
Well, no, I voted against these measures because politicians on both sides of the House, Conservative ministers and Labour shadow ministers, keep talking about we've asked the British public. The British public have never been asked. They've been coerced through law to stop seeing the people that they love. Now, if we asked the British public and trusted them to make the right decisions, I think we would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think many of those people who feel that they need to be instructed in law would be surprised to see how responsibly they would act. And you saw the usual talk today about people's mental health from the two front benches. I'm afraid I just don't buy into that. It's thrown in there as a sort of, well, it's thrown in there, I think, almost as a sop, but I think people's mental health has been relegated to right back where it was perhaps a decade ago.
You talked in the comments about how, in your view, people are going to break during this lockdown. What do you mean by that?
Because I do work in mental health. I've campaigned in the area of mental health, and people from around the country write to me with their experiences, and I'm aware that there are people who have committed suicide because their families have told me. People tell me about their own experience. They have already quite small worlds, and when you go into a forced lockdown, their world gets smaller. And this is really, really difficult for a lot of people. And I have just felt for a long time there has been such a lack of compassion to the plight of people who are far less fortunate than myself, or dare I say journalists living in nice houses, who have a small world, perhaps a small accommodation, lots of pressures, and this is really tough for them. And I don't think we've ever acknowledged as a political class, a media class, how hard it is for some people. And then we denounce people as being COVIDiots, for example, when they make a mistake or it gets too much for them. I think it's very unfair, and it shows a deep lack of compassion.
It's really hard, isn't it, though, to weigh those very legitimate concerns you have about people's mental health with what you're seeing in hospitals at the moment, and people within the NHS saying that they just will simply collapse if they don't have this new lockdown. Did that make you think twice before voting the way you did?
And I get contacted by mental health professionals. They're not a uniform group, but I get contacted by a number of mental health professionals who are deeply concerned as to what's going to happen to their patient cohorts. So again, yes, physical health is important, but we talk about parity of mental health, and it just doesn't seem to be there. It doesn't even seem to be discussed in a meaningful, sensible way, and that's just not acceptable. Now, only 16 of us voted against the regulations today for a variety of reasons, one of them that they weren't going to be reviewed till March 31st. But look, people out in the audience can hate what I'm doing, but actually I'm in that division lobby for those people who haven't got a voice, who feel that this lockdown is more than they can bear. And in a democracy, things have to be contested. And those who love the lockdown, the 78%, or endure it, or can get on with it, well, they have all the voices in Parliament, or almost all the voices. There need to be a few voices for those who are struggling with this, either through their deteriorating mental health, the fact that they're losing businesses, possibly their homes. And so let's just be a little bit, let's just be sensitive to the idea that there are people out there who don't all think the same.
Sir Charles Walker, thanks very much for joining us.